Welcome back to the final episode in our Boardroom Forum live on business model reinvention. In the previous episodes, we delved into the different ways that business model reinvention can enable drive and growth to achieve sustainability for organizations. If you haven't seen some of these episodes yet, please log on to our PwC Business School website and search under the Boardroom Forum Live program. Today, I'm delighted to welcome a very special guest, Khulekani Mathe, the CEO of BUSA, who's going to share his perspectives from an outside-in perspective with all of us. Khulekani, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Thank you for the invitation.
If I can start, for those of people who don't know what BUSA is, can you give us a quick introduction and an overview?
BUSA stands for Business Unity South Africa. We are the largest and most influential business federation in South Africa. We have members covering about 90% of the South African economy, and we cover virtually all sectors of the economy. We are a voice of business. We lobby, we advocate for a business-friendly economic and policy environment in the country. We engage policymakers, we engage lawmakers to make sure that the environment is conducive to doing business in South Africa.
Well, then you're definitely the right person to talk to today. So Khulekani, what do you believe is most important for businesses in South Africa to focus on if they want to achieve success, sustainability, and competitiveness in this volatile market of ours?
A couple of things. I mean, the first thing is businesses have to embrace technology, digital technology. AI is going to define and determine success in this environment. But added to that will be obviously investing in skills, because having a skilled workforce is going to also be one of the most important things in ensuring success and competitiveness. And finally, making sure that as a company, you not only invest in skills and technology, but you also take care of the environment. I mean, the changes that are taking place, the laws that are going to be implemented are going to make it difficult for those companies that are not taking seriously the challenge of climate change and everything associated with it.
That is so important, and that actually aligns to what we've seen in our CEO survey, and specifically in the sub-Saharan area as well. So Khulekani, based on your understanding of business model reinvention, what do you think are the biggest risks that organizations will face if they don't prioritize reinvention in the coming years?
I read recently a report compiled by the Human Sciences Research Council. This is a report that over more than 10 years now has been tracking R&D spend in South Africa, both from the private sector as well as the public sector. A worrying trend is that in the last few years, spend by the private sector on R&D has actually declined. That's worrying because if we do not invest in research and development, we cannot innovate. And if we cannot innovate, we won't be able to make the necessary adjustments to the business model that will enable our businesses to be competitive. And so that is a worrying trend, and leadership is going to be absolutely critical in this environment, because leaders that take a long-term view will understand that making certain investments now for changes that you want to see and successes that you want to see in the future is absolutely critical. But leaders who are short-sighted and are chasing short-term profits are unfortunately going to succeed in the present, but unfortunately fail in the long term.
I couldn't have agreed more. I think it's so important that research, strategic long-term thinking for future success for our businesses in this environment. Again, thinking of the South African landscape, which are the sectors or the industries that you think is going to have the most significant change where they will require reinvention?
I think changes are happening rapidly across sectors. I don't think there's a single sector that is not affected by the changes that are happening. Some of them originating as they do from external factors, such as the trade regime that is imposed on the world economy by the United States. I mean, that's got to change a business in several ways, whether it is about looking at and identifying new customers, new sort of trading partners, or as in the case of, for instance, policies like the cross-border adjustment mechanisms imposed by the EU and soon by the UK, all of these will mean and will have impact on various kinds of businesses. So here you can think of, for instance, sectors such as the auto sector, right? The change from the internal combustion engines to EVs is going to require businesses to change in a big way, right? Not only just automakers, but also every other industry that supports the auto industry is going to be affected by that change. Of course, as we have seen in South Africa, changes in energy have already, I think, touched many sectors of the economy. So that is going to continue to happen, open new opportunities that were not available when energy production in South Africa was dominated by Eskom as a state monopoly. There are changes that we're living through today, which I don't think we've seen the end of, which will require businesses to continue to innovate and reinvent, whether it's in the transport and logistics sector, the e-hailing industry, Airbnb. I think all of those industries are going to see not less, but more change happening, which will require businesses in those sectors to continuously reinvent. I mean, we know that sectors such as banking, for instance, were in some ways protected by regulations, but now the fintech industry is eating some of their lunch, especially in the payment space. So again, you're going to see those sectors needing to reinvent in some ways. And finally, telcos aren't what they used to be. Telcos used to allow all of us to call each other. Very few people call each other today. They transitioned to data, and now they're introducing other lines of business to what was a traditional sector. And I said finally, but I'm just reminded also of the fact that a sector or an industry such as insurance, for a completely different reason, which is that all of the changes induced by climate change do mean that insurance has to think differently, because if they don't, they're going to be out of business. Just the sheer scale of disasters that will happen will threaten that industry.
Very true. And I think when we looked again through some of our survey data, some of the challenges that certain organizations face creates opportunities for others. And it all is that strategic mindset where you look at these changes. Maybe some of the barriers that you think organizations, and I think you've mentioned some already, but some of the major barriers that you think that organizations in South Africa will have to overcome to be successful and turn these challenges into opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one cannot overemphasize the importance of leadership. So business leaders are going to be critical to the adoption and having the right response to the changes that are taking place. Again, if leaders do not make the right decisions at the right time, they will unfortunately fail. Timing is of essence, because you could try to implement business model reinvention too early, and find results that are disastrous, or too late and similarly find results that are disastrous. So really having leadership that is both foresighted but also agile to be able to act and make changes rapidly is going to be absolutely critical. Of course, there are other issues that are important in a country like ours. Just making sure that we produce the right kinds of skills as an economy is going to support or unfortunately hinder the success in business model reinvention. Similarly, investment in infrastructure, the right kinds of infrastructure is going to also be absolutely necessary. Infrastructure that supports the deployment of technology is going to be critical. Unfortunately, I think we've let ourselves down over the years where not only did we build on the infrastructure that we had, but we've allowed some of it to break down. And so we're having to invest in trying to get the right kinds of infrastructure. So infrastructure is going to be the second most important thing to allowing businesses to succeed and remodel themselves.
And Khulekani, that speaks very much as well to a private-public partnership, which is going to be important to overcome some of these barriers. What do you think are the role of private and public partnerships in overcoming these opportunities, but really challenges, but also really turning it into the opportunities that South Africa so desperately need?
So we have seen in the last few years, in particular starting in 2023, where government and business came together in a partnership at the time to try and address what was a crippling energy crisis that we were facing in the country, which was leading to business interruptions, job losses, in fact, a job bloodbath. And so seeing all of that, business came together with government and said, let's work together. And that has been extended to other sectors such as transport and logistics, again, because the failure by Transnet at the time, which was, again, a state monopoly, was and continues to have very serious implications for the economy. We are an economy where production takes place inland, and we've got to try and truck product over long distances in order to then ship it. And that does place us at a disadvantage, because if there are any problems with our logistics sector, a whole lot of industries that depend on a very well-oiled logistics system suffer. So we've seen changes there which are beginning to bear fruit. That says to us that some of the problems that we're facing in the 21st century are such that they cannot be addressed by any one sector acting alone. We need to work together. We have been calling on government to work with us in partnership on things such as the NHI. We know that we have this dual system where we have a private sector and a public sector, and both are not working optimally. And we need the two sectors to work together to get that, to reform our health system. And so many of the challenges of the present and the future require business and government to work together. So we have some lessons that we've learned, and we would hope that these lessons are applied to every other sector where this makes sense. So public-private partnerships are absolutely critical for business going forward.
Thank you, Khulekani. Before we end, can I ask you for your last comment, your closing comment on what business model reinvention is for you?
For me, business model reinvention really is about having leaders that are tuned to their customers' needs and the changing environment in which they operate, and making changes that are required. We have business leaders in South Africa who operate in various markets on the continent and elsewhere. That demonstrates that actually in this country, we have a very strong basis for business model reinvention. And I would argue that we have a basis to build on, but we've got to make sure that we build the next layer of leaders to be able to drive the change, which unfortunately will not take 10 years. It will be rapid.
Well, there you have it, the outside-in perspective from Khulekani from BUSA. Khulekani, thank you so much for joining us for this episode.
You're welcome.
And that, everyone, is the final episode in our series on business model reinvention. I hope you've got a little bit of insight in terms of what business model reinvention is, how it can help organizations to drive growth, to drive profitability by looking at your business model and actually looking at some of the challenges and turn them into opportunities to create success and sustainability for the future. If you want to see any of the edit episodes, remember to log on to our PwC Business School website under Boardroom Forum Live. And thank you for joining us for this series. Take care.